Welcome to the Quarantine Sessions. I'm Aaron Wolfe. For the past year and a half, I've been traveling the world collecting interviews and stories of amazing people doing amazing things in amazing circumstances. And obviously I can't do that right now. This coronavirus has changed everything for everyone, but I thought it would be interesting instead to ask some of my favorite storytellers to send me their stories and bring them to you in this new way. I'm going to start with a story of my own about a place that I've been thinking a lot about recently for obvious reasons. And it starts with this clock. I've got this clock that I really love. I love it aesthetically. It's beautiful, I think. But a few years ago, it took on a different kind of meaning. And it all started with a phone call. So it's the middle of the afternoon. The phone rings. My wife, Naomi, says, I got the job. They offered it to me in the middle of the interview. Can you believe it? I got the job. It's my dream job. Can you believe it? I got the job. And all we have to do is move to Boston. Isn't it amazing? And on the inside, I'm like, no. But on the outside, I'm like, no. Because, first of all, I'm terrible at hiding my emotions. Literally, once I was on an airplane, there was sort of choppy turbulence. I was freaking out on the inside, but on the outside, I'm thinking oh, I'm cool as a cucumber. No one knows you're freaking out, Aaron. Relax. And then this little old lady sitting next to me goes, you're doing great. So yeah, not good at hiding my feelings. But also, I'm freaking out on the phone because this isn't a job offer. This is an existential dilemma. I've been a New Yorker my entire life. Even when I lived in New Jersey, I totally told people I was a New Yorker. My parents were New Yorkers, my grandparents were New Yorkers, my great-grandparents, Max and Minnie Goldfinger, they were New Yorkers, and I want my family to be New Yorkers as well. Also, we had a great apartment. It was under market. You don't give up a good apartment in New York. Seriously? But either way, I didn't want to go. And then Naomi says, we have 24 hours to decide. Love you. Bye. And hangs up the phone. For the next 24 hours, I go through every stage of grief in every conversation. I'm just I'm not going. I'm just not going. It's not going to happen. How could you make me make this decision? Maybe we could live apart for the next 25 years. We could make it work. Oh, this is the worst day of my life. Just over and over again. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, until finally I hit acceptance. About an hour before we have to make the decision, I look at Naomi, I take her hand and I say, look, no decision is permanent. But making an active decision is always better than being passive. We've just been defaulting to living here. My job isn't going anywhere. Our life isn't going anywhere. Let's do it and see what happens. And honestly, it feels good. It feels like we're adults. It feels like we're making an active choice. And then about a month later, I'm standing in the kitchen doing the dishes and I'm sobbing. And look, these days, doing the dishes and sobbing, totally normal. But back before COVID-19, it was doing the dishes was an opportunity to listen to a podcast or think hateful thoughts about your housemates, not just openly weeping, but there I am openly weeping, and I'm weeping because I'm holding my grandfather's forks and knives. And I look around the apartment and everything is my grandfather's. The silverware, the cups, the plates, the records on the record player, the art on the wall, the books on the bookshelves, the magazines that he saved, my very first dim sum, my very first hot dog, my very first cup of coffee, my love of life, my love of music, my love of art, my anger, my frustration, my very fucking New York essence. It's his, and now I have to say goodbye to it, and I don't know how to say goodbye to it. And then I see the clock. The clock that says Forsyth Monuments, established 1912. It used to hang in his shop. He was a monument dealer on the Lower East Side. He sold gravestones. And now I know what I want to do for my very last day as a New Yorker. The next day, me and my wife pack up my son, Diego, and we put him in the stroller and we walk across the Brooklyn Bridge through Chinatown, where I had my very first sweet pork bun, up Essex Street, down Delancey, over to Suffolk Street, to the site of his monument store. And it's not there anymore. It's an art gallery. And I don't feel anything, except for sort of sad at how time just keeps passing. But then I remember my cousin Murray's shop is around the corner. Silver Monuments, the last Jewish monument store on the Lower East Side. And so we walk over, and I stand out in front of it, and there in the window is a little sign that says Forsyth Monuments, because my grandfather sold Murray his business after he closed the shop. And I don't want to go inside, but I have to go inside. I mean, literally, I have to go inside. Naomi's like, we walked all the way here. You are going inside. So I push open the door and I walk into the shop, and it's dark and dusty, and Murray's not there, but his assistant's there, and he remembers me because the last time I saw him, I was buying a gravestone for my grandpa Bernie. And he says, "Oh, yeah, Beth Zion Cemetery. Yeah, how is your mother anyway?" And I look at this guy. He's gray and dusty. He could be like 40 years old or like 450 years old. Like, I have literally no idea. This guy has never touched an iPad in his life. He's got a pocket protector, like he's just made out of lint and dust. And this guy is my New York. This guy is everything to me. I don't know how to say goodbye to this guy. I don't know how to say goodbye to New York. I look around this place, and this place is mine. It's granite and old, and it smells, but it's mine. There's weathered yellow posters and a clock that looks just like my grandpa Bernie's clock. I don't know how to say goodbye to this place. I don't want to say goodbye to this place. And then the guy says, "It's funny, of all days you should come in today because Murray just sold the building. We're moving the business to Long Island. It's funny, of all days you should come in today." And I sort of rock back on my heels and I steady myself on a gravestone, and the granite is cold and familiar, just the way it used to be when I would go and visit my grandpa Bernie on the Lower East Side on Sundays before we'd eat dim sum. I used to rub my hands along the cold granite gravestones. I liked the way they felt then, and I like the way it feels now. And then the guy says, yeah, of all days, it's funny. You should come by today. And then he walks away. That clock never worked. That clock that was hanging in Murray's store and that was hanging in my grandfather's store, it never worked. For a while, I got obsessed with making it work. I researched on eBay and found these old clock parts, and I installed them, and I plugged in the clock, and it ran backwards, like a time machine, but also like a time machine. Because New York is gone. My New York, it's gone. A few months ago, I went back for a company thing, and we walked to my old apartment down the block from where my grandpa Bernie grew up, and I could barely recognize it because it's in the past. But that clock is here now. Because when I look at that clock, I see Forsyth monuments since 1912, but I also see my grandfather. I see the Lower East Side the way I remember it. I see Brooklyn the way I remember it. I see Williamsburg the way I remember it. But also I see it as it is today. New York's amazing. It does you this amazing favor. When you leave it, 3 people come and take your place. But those 3 people, they own it the way I owned it, the way my parents owned it, the way my grandparents, the way my great-grandparents owned it. I didn't have to say goodbye to New York. I had to say goodbye to my grandpa Bernie, and I had to say goodbye to my past. And I'm okay with that, because all of those things live on in this clock and in the stories I tell when I think about that place. Be safe, everybody.